New line. All right. All right.
Yeah,
We're actually time to start. It's 7:30. We will begin momentarily. Can we also see the participant on screen so we know who's with us?
There you go. It just started with it.
I don't know.
Oh, you know what, I might be able to see some,
Valerie might.
I'm a panelist.
Okay.
There's 7.
Yeah, can we just see the,
Yeah.
it's like it's
Oh,
the
sorry.
panelists? Can I see the, these?
Yeah, it's,
That'd be helpful. Okay. Okay, thank you.
anybody else?
Thank you. Actually, I wouldn't mind. No, no, I think, I mean, I know what it is. I just, I thought it was. Yeah. Skip it. I don't know how to work, but clothing sports for me. I like it. Incorrect password.
No.
That's me. Oh, I shared. Okay, and all right, let's text it to me already. All right, I know what it is. Okay. All right, everybody. Good evening and welcome back to the Town Board of the Town of Austin Town Hall meeting, actually held at Town Hall for Tuesday, September 30th, 2022. Please rise and join me for the allegiance and standing for a moment of silence for Jake Anthony Barcara, an employee of the Yorktown Highway Department who tragically passed away at the very young age of 28 while on the job. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. These moments are not enough. This morning I joined Yorktown and picked from Portland. For all her. As I said, these moments are not enough. This morning I joined Yorktown, Town of Portland, and Highway and DPW departments from across the county and Putnam as well, to pay our last respects to Jake's family, his fiance, who I believe actually went to school in Austin, and Jake, as I mentioned, was an employee of the Yorktown Highway Department and was tragically killed in an accident while on the job. It just is another opportunity for all of us to thank all of our employees who regularly put themselves in harm's way as part of their jobs. And a reminder to ask everyone to please heed all road work signs. Slow down when you are in or near road construction, and help ensure the safety of all of our workers, all of our road crews. Thank you. We need to do, we don't do roll call or anything, right? Just get right into, I have some announcements. Even better, if you haven't already, please take the car-free day pledge, and if you haven't done so, now's the time, and then you can not have a vehicle on the road. It's officially car-free week, and we are hard at work with Green Austin, the Village, 511 New York Rideshare, the Austin schools, and a local business community to bring you a fun suite of forward-looking sustainable activities for the days surrounding Car-Free Day, and it is International Car-Free Day. Take the pledge now to reduce or eliminate your car usage, and in particular, single passenger gas fueled car usage for at least one day during this week by visiting www.511nyrideshare.org/car-free-day. And be sure to follow at Town of Ossining on Facebook and or Instagram to enjoy all the car-free, car-light fun. We've got lots of local businesses participating. If you choose an alternative mode of transportation, to visit Mike Briscoe Music, Tasty Table, La Brea Dance Academy, Hudson Valley Books for Humanity, Bigfoot Creamery, Family Veterinary Care, or Sing Sing Hill Brewery, you can get fun swag ranging from musical instruments to bubbles and a free gently used book, coffee, or ice cream treat. Huge shout out to Miriam Risco, Mike Risco Music, for helping with outreach to our local businesses to get them involved, and we're grateful to all these businesses. Last year, Ossining actually won the prize for most signups of any municipality in New York, and we were also acknowledged for innovative programming. We're looking to repeat that feat this year with everyone's help. Please consider ride sharing, aka carpooling, van pooling, bicycling, or walking or working from home as an alternative to get to work or just to get around. Just one day, you guys, that's it. But hopefully you'll incorporate it into your regularly scheduled ways to get to work. Notices are in the mail now regarding the new Westchester Power Electricity Supply Contract. Sustainable Westchester will be holding 10 information sessions in the coming weeks, 8 in English and 2 in Spanish. Excuse me, I'm just joking. I'm not sick. For residents to get the fact about the new contract and ask questions. Sessions will be held on September 22nd, 28th, and 30th, October 4th, 5th, and 6th at noon and 7 p.m. Pick a session that fits your schedule at sustainablewestchester.org/WP/Con Ed Territory #events. This new contract will help us lower our carbon footprint with 100% green electricity supply and guaranteed steady rates, which we know is so important in our current volatile energy market. And I'm sure many of you have received notices from Con Ed about potential rising prices. This is going to lock in your rate for 2 years. Please get the facts so you can make an educated decision about whether to stay in the program or opt out when the new contract goes into effect on November 1st. I also wanted to bring to everybody's attention that today is National Voter Registration Day, and the deadline to register to vote by mail, postmarked by, or to register in person is Friday, October 14th, 2022. Election date is November 8th this year. That's Tuesday. The deadline to request an absentee ballot by mail, fax, or online is Monday, October 24th, 2022. Or Monday, November 7th, 2022 in person. The early voting period runs from Saturday, October 29th, I think, to Sunday, November 6th, 2022, except for, right, and then there's no voting on Monday. It's a typo, it's not I'm reading. Anyway, I didn't write that one. Next, on Saturday, September 25th, there will be a walking tour of the historic Sparta neighborhood starting at 1 p.m. at the Jug Tavern. This will be the second to last opportunity to catch the tour before the end of the season. On Sunday, September 25th, the Ossining Documentary Discussion Series will host the Westchester County premiere of Windshipped Apollonia at Sing Sing Hill Brewery. The documentary about how the schooner Apollonia has brought old-fashioned fossil-free sail freight back to the Hudson River. Follow the Apollonia as it picks up and delivers goods to Hudson River ports and directly to its customers, including locally right here in Ossining to Sing Sing Hill Brewery. Doors open at 5:30. The program starts at 6:30 p.m. A tax reminder, always a fave. School tax bills have been sent out and payment for the first half is due by September 30th for both Ossining and Briarcliff school districts. If you pay directly instead of through an escrow account and have not received your bill yet, please call our tax receiver's office at 914-762-8790. And you can also view and pay your bill online at the tax receiver's page of our website, which is townofossining.com/cms/receiver-of-taxes. And that is it For my announcements, I will see, okay, go ahead, Councilman Feldman, 2 additions,
3 actually.
3 additions.
So Saturday, October 1st is a very busy day. Green Ossining is having their second townwide tag sale of the year. Tomorrow, the 21st, is the last day you can sign up for it, so go to greenossining.org. And get rid of some of those things you don't need and upcycle them. Also, the Ossining Boat and Canoe Club is having their family fun and fishing day with crafts, fishing, food, and a really fun family day for everyone. And T-Town is having their Night in the Woods Gala that evening. So, T-Town does a lot for our community, and you should go support that, or if you can, it's a really good night. So any one of those things are all happening on October 1st.
Fantastic. Any of them? Anything else? No, all right, fantastic. So weird to just actually look at you. See, look in the eyes. I can look you in the eyes on the table too. Anyhow, so first up on our town hall meeting agenda is the street naming for the 39 Stormy Town Road subdivision, also known as Rinaldi subdivision or Chocolate Sky LLC. The members of the Ossining Centralized Committee of Organized War Veterans, in particular, Tim Carey, is here this evening. He's past post commander of Parker Vale American Legion and a member of the Ossining Centralized Committee of Organized War Veterans to discuss the street naming of the subdivision. Our town code requires us to name a new street after our Ossining veterans who died in service. We thanked him and the American Legion team for helping us with this process. So I don't know if we can recognize Mr. Carey and allow him to be a panelist.
Victoria, do I have to do that here?
No, but I don't happen to see Mr. Carey listed, so if you're here and you can raise your virtual hand.
Or if,
If anyone's here,
Yeah, if anyone's here from the,
Ossining Centralized Committee for Organized War Veterans.
and if that's not the case, then we will shift into, I guess we're second discussion, and then if Mr. Carey appears, I guess we'll open it up. If not, I guess I can read the memo, or I could have.
yeah, I have the memo on my computer, so I could also share my screen if the board wants to later.
Okay, so yeah, I guess we'll give Mr. Carey a chance to join us in a little bit. And meanwhile, let's go on to our second item of discussion. And basically, we have asked our planner, Valerie Monaster from Nelson Pope Voorhees, to help lead us through the rest of the meeting, except if obviously if Tim Carey joins us. We have a number of items that are related to planning to discuss. We've asked Valerie to just kind of guide us through these discussions. First, we are talking about the New York Forward Grant. So Valerie, if you could share with us some background on this grant opportunity before we discuss it.
Sure. So, yes, so the New York Forward Grant is a new grant program. It's what we're calling basically it's a mini DRI, which is the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. So as many of you recall, Village of Ossining won the DRI last year and they received $10 million in state funding. The New York Forward program is a smaller program where there's $10 million, but it's going to be split between 2 or 3 different communities. So maximum one community would receive $4.5 million. It's specifically meant to focus on smaller, walkable, less dense geographical areas within like communities that might not necessarily have as many projects going on like a city would. And so it's meant to focus on a number of projects within the $3 to $5 million range, so that there's multiple projects, so that there would be, it's not just one project for 4.5 million, but multiple projects. It's also meant to focus on like lower density type of development versus like the high-rise apartment complexes or something like that that might be associated with a more denser community and more of a downtown center. And then it also really is supposed to identify projects that elevate like the specific cultural, historical qualities, but also bring that small town character.
So just to add on to that, some of the pieces of the grant that we think the grant can help fund include items like, do we say that we're targeting?
So we are targeting
Okay.
the Executive Boulevard area and portion of Stormy Town Road for the grant application.
Right, so Executive Boulevard, for anybody who doesn't know, is an office park, and it's currently zoned office research.
Yes, and also office.
Office business and office research. And it does actually house a number of different businesses. And also our school district administration building is there right now, and there are, I want to say 5 buildings as part of the current office park. We have been speaking with the owner of the parcel in the back of the Executive Boulevard, as well as I believe he own a couple of the buildings. And that's actually Michael Dottie, who's here, joined us this evening to talk a little bit about the potential for that area. We also, if like, as Valerie mentioned, it wouldn't be the funding from the grant wouldn't be just for one project similar to DRI, and there would be an application process. But at the very beginning, when you apply for the grant, you do need to have some potential projects identified. And that also would include items that would comport with our comprehensive plan, like making that area along Stormy Town Road, which ties into Cedar Lane and then into our village, more walkable, bikeable, adding bike and pedestrian infrastructure, specifically like sidewalks, for example, and also looking at zoning that would be more adaptable than just the office business for office research. And the grant does allow for, you are allowed to use it to pay for zoning studies. So we would have an opportunity to look at missing middle housing, which has been discussed, and housing that hits a range of affordability, to incentivize economic development, like supporting the businesses and the residents and the school district that are already there in and near the office park, and looking ahead to the future and maybe incorporating some mixed use like retail, housing, office. So it would be like live, work, play concept back there, and incorporating, of course, open space, which would be accessible to the public. So those are some of the things that we believe if we apply for this New York Forward grant, that the 4.5 million could basically be targeted to. And then we also asked Mike Baldati to join us, and he may have some other folks from his architectural firm, and I think he's on now. And maybe if one of you, Jacqueline or Mike, wanted to talk a little bit about some of your thoughts, and I know you have been thinking about this for some time, but maybe to just talk a little bit about what your thoughts are.
Do you want me to share it?
Yeah, here, let's see what they, let's see if we can unmute maybe Mike and Jacqueline, are you guys there? The real one. Hi, and welcome.
Hi, Dana. Thanks for inviting me tonight. I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to kind of work alongside you guys with this New York Forward grant. You know, kind of there's a confluence of things happening right now. You guys have kind of been working on your comp plan. In addition to that, this New York Forward opportunities presented itself. And just to give a little perspective, I guess about a month ago, Dana had reached out to me and wanted to kind of share this New York Forward opportunity with us. So, you know, to your point, we have been kind of thinking about how to repurpose the park for, you know, many years. And there's been an evolution of plans and thought given to that. You know, we've waited for the town to kind of come up to speed too, and, you know, kind of recognize the need to keep Executive Boulevard vital. You know, the days of corporate office parks are kind of way in the rearview mirror. We've managed to keep it somewhat viable, but as we all see around us, there's a lot of different redevelopments happening. Thinking of a few off the top of my head, Chappaqua Crossing, the old Reader's Digest parcel, River Towns down in Dobbs Ferry along the Sawmill Parkway. These are just some opportunities. So, again, I think we're in the very early conceptual stages of things, but it's good to see that the board is open to working alongside us to come up with hopefully a good plan and a successful grant campaign here. What I'd like to do is probably just turn the presentation over to Jacqueline Tyler from Nexus Creative. I've been working with her and John for a number of years on this. I think, what we try to do is give you guys a narrative of a few pages, along with some conceptual images and sort of an overlay of the property. And, happy to kind of keep working on making this happen. So again, thanks for the opportunity, and I'll let Jacqueline kind of speak to, some of the specifics of the narrative.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And are we able to screen share, or can we pull up what we submitted?
You should be able to share your screen, or Valerie.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, Valerie's gonna do it. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Yes. So again, just to reiterate what Mike said, thank you for having us tonight. This is a parcel, or parcels, I should say, that we've been collaborating with Mike on for over 5 years. So it's great to see that between the comp plan that you all are developing, as well as this grant opportunity, there's going to be some opportunities here for parcels such as these to be able to be developed. And in relation to what it is that you all are trying to do within the town of Ossining. So this is just an example of the space that we're looking at. It's really important for us. We've been reimagining this along with other municipalities who have implemented zoning changes. That's something that we know is a part of this grant, or could be a part of this grant. So we highly encourage you all to look at that possibility. Really, the vision for this is to create, and I think Dana might have mentioned this, the work, live, play scenario. And so we're looking to include housing, office space will still be a part of this, but introduce new, diverse, flexible housing located up at where you see the area marked 4 on this map. You will see that we are implementing or attempting to implement sustainability both within the residences as well as down in the working area. We are kind of keeping those, they are separate, but at the same time looking to introduce a park that's traversing along the parcels to kind of integrate, provide walking capabilities between them, providing additional biking, etc. As well as looking to explore some type of linkage along Route 9A. That would be in conjunction with the New York State DOT initiative. So we've just kind of indicated that along the length of the parcels here, but that can be a reimagined however we see fit amongst the comp plan, as well as anything that's introduced with this grant, whether that's in conjunction with other parcels, etc. We think that this is going to help introduce additional, we're going to keep the park open space while also introducing business opportunities within this area. So that's something that I think, we think it's a desire within the community based on the comp plan, everything that we've been hearing and following. Valerie, if you want to flip over, actually, I just want to give you a little bit more insight into the site itself. Perfect. So here again, we've highlighted the site in the center. You'll see the top edge noted in A, you'll see the viewpoint of that kind of across from 9A. So you see 9A in the foreground there, and you can see the buildings that Dana mentioned earlier. If you jump down to 9B and C, you'll start to see the other areas, especially in B, the area that's undeveloped right now. So looking to increase the opportunity to populate that with some additional housing. As Mike mentioned, the plan has fluctuated over the course of the last 5 years that we've been studying this. We're just trying to make sure that we're staying up to date. We're constantly following the different diversity of housing that's being requested within Westchester, as well as trying to tailor this towards the comp plan that you all are developing as well as any grant opportunity. And then on the last slide, I think we just have some additional images of the sites that we currently have. And again, the lower images show the area that's undeveloped currently. Anything else, Mike, that you want to add to this?
Well, I think the key is that it's not a complete reset. I mean, we want to enhance what's worked up there. There's definitely some success stories. The school districts found a home up at 400 Executive. Austin's got a very solid business in histogenetics at 300 Executive Boulevard, which is a STEM-based genetic, scientific outfit that's employs a whole bunch of folks. And, we'd hate to see them, move to some different area, whether it's White Plains or down county or somewhere else. Westchester's blessed with a lot of great biotech type things. We all know how well Regeneron's done, only 10 or 15 minutes down the road. So, why can't we replicate that success in Ossining? And again, we don't want to force any of these businesses out. We'd like to enhance that by, adding these other uses to the parcel. And again, checking off on all the boxes, community benefit. If someone could walk over from one of the adjoining neighborhoods to a coffee shop or, convenience retail, I mean, that's a big plus. So these are all the things that are kind of floating around right now. And I just think it's going to keep, it's good to keep the lines of communication open with the board. And I think that's where it is. I mean, again, we're not sure where you guys are going to go with the grant. I mean, we're happy to be part of it. I know it's sort of a last minute thing, but again, we're happy to kind of continue to talk, and we want to keep this parcel viable for the town. It's a good taxpayer, and it could be a much better taxpayer with these other uses added to the mix. So.
Great, thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation and the thoughtfulness that you continue to put into how to develop your parcel. I just want to also say, I think, again, as you mentioned, taking into consideration what is happening around the county as well as what's happening in our own community is really important, and not just have a conversation with the board, but also the public. And that's why this is a town hall meeting tonight. So there's an opportunity for public comment. And we especially welcome that for this particular project, for everything that we're talking about tonight. We do want to hear from the public. And there is a large, this is just the tip of the iceberg for this grant, and similar to the DRI. I think the village applied for DRI maybe 5 times. The 5th time was a charm. We do not know that we have any chance of getting this. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We are always hopeful that we would get something the first time out. We do think that it is synergistic with or has the potential to have synergies with the village's DRI and enhance the economic development opportunities that affords our village. So I think that's how we see it, but we also see this as a first step. So Mike mentioned that it was a little bit of a last minute pulling this together, and it still is. We put in a letter of interest, and now we're going to put in an initial application. But this is just the beginning of the process. It's not like there's no fait accompli. There's no like these are definitely the projects or anything. We're kind of soliciting ideas right now and suggesting that these might be good directions to go. And we do believe that we have $4.5 million worth of projects. So I just wanted to say that before we open it up to the public. And I don't know, Valerie, did you have anything to say?
No, I think you captured it all.
Okay. Did the board have anything that they wanted to add before I ask for public input and public comment? And let's just say I'll give everybody 3 minutes, and if it seems like people need a lot more time, we can go back around again. Okay. So if anybody from the public, I know that we have John Brady, who I think is president of Tour Review on with us tonight. You might have wanted to say something. So I just because we particularly reached out to you, if you did, John, want to comment, we can recognize you. Can you just let us know that you're ready to be there? Okay, so let's let John have an opportunity. Tour Review Swim Club is in the, I don't know what you call it, catchment area, but it's in the area that we've identified for the project. Near Fort Bragg.
And it could probably benefit, I think it really benefits the whole area from the neighborhood to the local swim club to the Executive Boulevard area. I think bringing that all together and tying it together and making it more safe to be able to walk and bike in that area would be one of the primary goals for me.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Sean Brady. I'm the president of Tourview, which is 25 Stormy Town Road, which is basically across the street from the office park, Executive Boulevard. I have Tourview's, we have a 25-meter pool, 4-lane lap pool with a diving board, deep end, kiddie pool, 13 acres of property, 4 tennis courts, elevated pickleball court, snack bar. We have a big complex. We are in that area. I mean, I think it would be great to revitalize that area. If number one, if I could, sidewalks from Reback. I have a lot of families that live on Reback that could walk to Tourview, walk to Executive Park. Someone was mentioning maybe coffee shops or retail in there. I mean, and there's offices in there. If they could walk over to Tourview and use the pool, our members could walk over there, take advantage of any type of retail, coffee shops, and even in the community back off of Reback Drive, which there's no sidewalks or anything. So to access the Executive Boulevard, they have to sort of walk in the street, and to access Tourview, they'd have to walk in the street. So, as far as the grant, I just think that sidewalks, revitalization of that Executive Park back there. I mean, I think it would be a great idea. That's my input. I would like to see that, see that work, or.
And certainly, if you guys have anything specific that you're thinking about, that would be particular to Tourview, besides just making it more walkable and easier to access, I think, if you have any specific thoughts about that, or making it, I mean, I know you're a private club, but if you're, if it's some kind of consideration that you would want to be in, talking to, I don't know, either the school administration or anybody in the office park to figure out some kind of benefit for employees, that might be something that, would also be interesting to consider.
Oh, well, I'm absolutely always looking forward to, working to get, drum up more membership. We're a private club, but most of our members, 90% of our members are Austin residents,
Maybe you can make.
In walkable
you can
distance.
Take some of the weight off of our
Yeah.
parks.
Pickleball leagues.
Pickleball is really popular right now.
Yeah, so, but
Okay, thanks so much, John, and I think that we have, I'm gonna say, I don't know if it's really Jim, I'm gonna say it's Jamie Black, because it usually is, would like to be recognized.
Hi, it is Jamie, alias Jim. I have to figure out how to solve that, but good evening, everybody. Thank you for making a commitment to try to get grant money to continue to improve town of Austin in terms of accessibility and viability. And, with the team at Executive Park, I think that they have some vacancy challenges. If I'm not mistaken, they grieve their taxes to a fairly significant level because of financial downturn and hardship. So my question is who owns that area that you're sort of thinking about putting some housing in, i.e. areas, say 4, and then sort of the sustainability element that I believe was area 7? Who owns that property, Dana?
That would be Mr. Valdati.
So my question is this, is that because they grieved their taxes, money came off of the roll. So if monies were put forth from the grant to improve his private property, would then an opportunity be made available to reassess his property again with a commitment of bringing the money back onto the roll?
Well, I mean, if the property is improved, it would be reassessed. So.
Yeah, so I think that one, that would be essential, but at the same time, it would be really good if we could figure out a more literal way to kind of give the grant money back to the community so that we could kind of pay it forward to create another opportunity to further enhance our experience as Town of Austining residents. Because I drove up to the executive park yesterday, and it really is an area that seems like it's ready to be redeveloped and redeployed as an asset in community. So I think that you guys are spot on with this as a target. And then the whole idea of trying to create the accessibility off of Route 9A, I think that that would be essential too.
So just to be absolutely clear, people grieve their taxes because, they grieve their assessments, right? They grieve their assessments because when they believe and they have some sort of legitimate proof, which is how they can effectively grieve their assessments, that their property is not worth what it has been assessed for, and anything can grieve their assessments. So if a property then gains value, it then becomes assessed at the rate for which it could be sold, or the benefit, whatever if it's a business. Oftentimes sales are also taken into account depending on what kind of business it is.
Right.
So the value that the grant brings back to the community is by redeveloping the property and bringing, whether it's sales tax, whether it's property tax, and whether it's just, the benefit of open space. Those are all benefits for our community. So all of the taxpayers benefit from those different attributes that we would be working on. Sidewalks, again, that would have the potential to benefit Torview, but also benefit the school districts, because AMD middle school is walkable from the back. And there's a number of other properties that are walkable from the back. There actually is a walking path back from AMD that I think comes out right onto Stormy Town Road in that area. And I believe even Dale Cemetery potentially is accessible, walkable if it were walkable. So there are a number of potential open spaces that could be contiguous and make for a very public benefit. So again, economic development is a benefit for all of our taxpayers.
Right.
Open space, walkability, bikeability. Also, one of the things that I personally have noticed is that there are people from histogenetics who are housed in the area, and they often walk to and from, and making it safer for community residents who live and work in the community as well as the school district. Those are all benefits for our community. If we have places for our educators, our administrators to eat lunch, during the day, maybe they could stay on campus because there's places to eat. That's a benefit to our taxpayers. It's a benefit to our school children, and it's a benefit to our community. So anyway, that's my input.
And Dana, if I could just add, just to kind of piggyback on that, we've had the park for 40 years. So, commercial establishments have always paid a decent amount of tax, in the sense that they don't get some of the benefits that a homeowner does. There's no star exemption. There's no senior star. You really don't get any break. So one of the challenges with real estate taxes is when you ask a tenant to pay or reimburse you for $6 or $7 a square foot in taxes, you lose a lot of potential tenants that way. It's just another cost of doing business. And we've had the building, like I said, for the property for 40 years. So we've definitely paid, I feel, our fair share into the community. But the other thing, and I think the positive thing here, is that, potentially if you add up the value of all the real estate up there, and it's worth, 10 million or 15 million, there's an opportunity here to supercharge that and maybe make it 50 million or 100 million. And then that really gives the taxpayers of the town and the village and the school district a big break. I mean, some of the stuff that we've looked at in the past, I mean, I personally know for a fact, like Rivertown Squares, the development there has paid so much taxes in the last 3 or 4 years that I think Dobbs Ferry hasn't had to raise taxes on their village residents. So these are things that you have to think about. I mean, certainly, we're going to talk about this in great detail, but, again, just some perspective.
My favorite is always to discuss the assessment pie, right? So as you expand the pie and bring more value onto the role, everybody's piece of pie gets a little bit smaller. So that's the idea of bringing more value. So can I ask if there's anybody else who, I think there are.
It looks like Clark B raised their hand next, so I'm gonna allow to talk. Clark.
Hi, I'm actually Clark's wife. I'm sitting with him right now. So our property is.
I'm sorry, could you just introduce yourself then?
Oh, hi, I'm Shannon, Shannon Buckley. So I live in, our property is right against, I think it's zone 7, like the furthest out zone that I think was labeled as sustainability. And so my husband and I are wondering, like, I guess, first off, like, what exactly do you mean by a sustainability section? And I'm also curious, like, if there's going to be any in this plan, any kind of like border of like trees or anything between like this development and the people's backyards who are right up against it. There's a lot of like wildlife that comes into our yard through there. There's just a lot of animals that we have in that area.
Sure, yeah, I mean, would you, I don't know if Mike, Jack, if you guys wanted to comment on that. I know that you had talked about buffers and again, I just want to be really clear. I don't think that there's no final project. There's just some ideas right now. So I think one of the things that, would be part of the development would be to sort of assess
Right.
And get input and feedback from neighbors and businesses that are in and near that area. And so, getting types of feedback from them is important. But I don't know, Mike. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna just say that, well, one, I want to clarify, so just the 7 just means introducing sustainability in general. It doesn't mean in that specific location on the site. But in regards to buffers, et cetera, I mean, that's part of good planning. So, absolutely, that's something that I know the Beldottis and us at Nexus were committed to being good neighbors. So we would be looking for feedback and making sure that everybody in the community, the neighbors and the community at large, have input on what's going on this site and making sure that we're providing, for the betterment of the town of Ossining.
Right, and I'll just touch a little on the process itself. So this particular area would need rezoning, right? So there would be a zoning process, identifying what it is, what types of setbacks, what types of buffers, what types of uses would be allowed. And that would have to go through a state environmental quality review process, which then looks at all the environmental impacts. And then if ultimately a development is identified as part of that, that too would also go through the environmental impacts associated with that development. So it is a little bit of a process, but it is a thorough process where, and the public throughout the whole process gets to weigh in and express their concerns and, and different amendments to either the zoning or to the plans get changed based upon public comment.
And that there's always a buffer between the neighborhoods and any development.
Yes.
Required, always.
And Shannon, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Is that? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And I think Christine Manginelli. Hey, Christine.
Hi, can you hear me?
You can.
Hi, so I'm Christine Mangiamelli, and I don't have any super strong feelings about this yet. It sounds like it's kind of too early to have much to say, but I just wanted to reiterate the support I've heard for sidewalks. And I know, Dana, you brought up that kids do cut through the woods there at AMD. And I wanted to just, as speaking for just myself, because this has been kind of proposed publicly, kind of similarly to where this phase of development is here, that there is a potential down the road for the school district to pave some sort of exit from their property onto Stormy Town Road. And I don't know, like, just like this plan that you guys are talking about, it's in such early developmental phases. It may not happen. The facilities committee has to take a look at all these other proposals that have been made, but that has been something that has been suggested publicly. So to just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And my other kind of question that I'm just curious about is how much or to what degree, if at all, can we, I don't know, talk about how this would connect to 9A? I live in that area and it's really hard to take a left from 9A South onto Stormy Town Road. Even though that's the most direct way to my house, a lot of times I'll take a different route because it doesn't feel like a really safe turn. And of course, you can't come off of Stormy Town Road and head northbound on 9A. But I know it's also a state road, so kind of what capability do we have there to make it more accessible for cars passing through to stop and get a coffee, to stop at the corner store, or whatever ends up being there?
Thanks so much for your feedback, Christine, and really thoughtful. And yes, I do think, I know that, I certainly know that Mr. Baldati is very aware of 9A and safety issues. We also know that there was a $3 million grant that was approved that came through actually, who did it come from? Who did it come from?
Senator.
Was it Senator Harkin? No, it wasn't. No, it was, oh, maybe it was Senator Rickles. No, I think, anyway, it came through some state legislators to do a study of 9A corridor basically from, I think, Mount Pleasant up to the 998 split. And it's a study, a $3 million study to look at safety in the 9A corridor. And I do believe, this is certainly a piece of that area that would be studied and would, we would be looking to make safety improvements and suggest that we do that in conjunction with this grant. The other thing I want to say about this grant is, $4.5 million, well, sounds like a lot of money, doesn't go a long way when you're talking about sidewalks and road improvements. Certainly not when you're talking about, there's a $3 million study there's $3 million just to study, right? 9A improvements, just study to actually make those improvements can be a heck of a lot more expensive. But we do think that by applying for this Near Forward grant, that it will put us in a position to apply for other grants. And that is typically how a lot of the state grants work, is they see that something's starting, that something's like getting going, and then you're able to actually get in the queue for a lot of the other grants that could help buffer and support whatever the project is or projects that you are working on.
So that was actually $3 million in the state budget. So maybe who's ever the assembly person next year.
Good idea. Great idea. Great idea. And yeah, okay. I like it. So anyway, that's very helpful. I don't think we're going to do another second round of everybody's right yet. Let me just see if anybody else has a first round of questions. And I do see that.
Joe Clark, I just allowed you to speak.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hi, Joe.
So I'm so familiar with this area from when it was trees and no buildings at all. But a couple of things came to mind as I was listening tonight. So when I listened to Mr. Baldati describe sort of the vision, it seems like that's something that the town of Austin should be considering in any case, whether there's $4.5 million or not, to sort of think about how to reimagine, what exists today and what should happen in the vacant parcels. Because it's clear, at least from what I can see around the area, that Mike is right. There's a shift in terms of what's considered, commercial development sites versus mixed use sites. And I actually think it's a fairly good idea what he suggested to do there. I think, it really does need something more than we have today. The other thing I think is the walkways, and you're right, Dana, it's a fortune to build sidewalks. And then once you build them, who's going to maintain them? Which is a fight we have in the village every day. I think is important, but I do think it's important to get that done. And I can envision some really nice, walking trails for people, because since COVID, there's an awful lot more walkers out than there used to be. And Stormy Town Road is a rather dangerous road because you actually have to walk in the culvert. So you stay out of the flow of traffic. The other thing I think that's desperately missing in Ossining is sort of low scale residential development for people who want to downsize. And we actually thought in the 50s that doing things like starter homes in the Audubon Park area or the Indian Village area were great ideas. People would buy the two-bedroom house, and as they grew, they would move. But like most of us, we didn't do that. We added up and we added out. But, planned unit development districts can make that not happen if we do it right. There's a lot more to say about this, but I don't want to hold up tonight. But I actually, in general, I think this is a great idea to do something that's interesting there. As I said, I'm really familiar with the buildings up there. And I think what Mike and his team are proposing are conceptually really great. And I really do encourage you folks, if you have the will and the interest, to begin to figure out what the right uses are up there and develop a zone, a mixed use zone that's ready to go. Because it'll happen whether you get 4.5 million or not. I think somebody's willing to do something. Done.
All right, thanks so much, Joe, and thank you for that lovely timer. Is there anybody else who's joined us this evening? I saw one other name, and I don't know if you wanted to speak, but if you did, we would welcome you to, and if not, I'll give Jamie 1 or 3 minutes. Anybody else would like to say anything? Pro, con, neutral, just a great idea. Okay, go ahead, Jamie. Got 3 minutes.
Okay, Mike, it sounds like you've put a lot of thought into how to reimagine your executive park as the way that we live, the way that we work is changing. So Jocelyn, the material that you've provided, is that sort of the beginning framework of how Mike would move forward even without a grant to try to create sort of this mixed use space?
Yeah, I mean, what we provided this evening is kind of a summary. I think Mike would agree of things that we're exploring. Like I said, we've kind of been exploring this for somewhere around 5 years. So it's ebbed and flowed, especially, we're looking at different concepts now with the introduction of COVID, et cetera. So that's why it's hard for us to really nail down an actual layout and concept right now, is because it's been constantly changing. But yes, everything that you saw is the framework for how we see moving forward.
And just to add to Jacqueline's point, this is the town's impetus doing the grant. We're
right,
walking, kind of hand in hand with them, but it is their grant. I would assume they'd oversee the funds if they won the award. And there's, again, I think the document I saw was 30 pages long, and, doing a quick scan of it, I mean, there's a lot of things in there that, again, were really one small piece of that overall submission.
And just to add to that, and I don't know, Valerie, if you want to jump in here. I mean, one of the pieces of applying for this grant is to actually show that you have real projects. And the state, I think, does look favorably upon also having private dollars, not only public dollars, that would be either matching or part of, somehow part of any developments that you would see fit, or any projects that you would see fit. So, you know, looking at that area and knowing that, Mike had, you know, been thinking about these things, we did approach him to see if he'd be interested in partnering with the town to apply for the grant. Again, this is one piece and a very, very early stages of something that would be developed hand in hand with the public.
No, I think it's brilliant, and I think it's a really good starting point in terms of what would create the greatest conversion for town, be consistent with your comprehensive plan, and add value to the area that we call home. Because as everybody knows, the challenge with, you know, the unincorporated area is that we don't have a village green. We don't, our center is basically Route 134 and 9A. You know, so to create something that would be special in this area would really be nice for us, because we don't have a place that we congregate. You know, we go to Croton, we go to North State Road, or we go into the village. We don't have a place that we call our own here. So it'd be terrific if, you know, Mike can reimagine the executive park so that it would be something that, one, we could enjoy, two, something we could be proud of, and three, something that could add value back to community.
Great, thank you so much for those comments. And just making sure nobody else had anything else to add. And if so, then I just want to thank, oh, Joe, go ahead, Joe.
Just had a technical question. How many acres are we talking about?
Mike, how many acres we're talking?
Well, the portion up front that we control is 100, 200 executive. That's about 4.5 acres. The back parcel, which we call 600 executive, is about 13 plus acres. So, you know, all told, we control about 18 acres. If you look at the front and the back of Executive Boulevard, and then within executive, I believe 300, 400, and 500 executive are approximately 2 or 3 acres apiece. Way back when my dad acquired the property back in the late 70s, early 80s, I believe the entire acreage was about 25 or 26 acres. But, you know, again, these are all published numbers, so we can get that if that has to go on the grant.
Just a order of scale. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments from town board colleagues? No?
No, I just think it's a great idea that has to be reinvented, and I give Mike, you know, kudos to reimagine and reinvest in the town of Austin. So I hope this is a first step. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to, you know, not only that, but tying the neighborhood together, making it more safe, walkable, bikeable, and, you know, connectivity to the AMD and Dale Cemetery area, as well as everything else, I think would be great.
Couldn't agree more with my colleagues.
I'll just say, as the member who resides in the unincorporated area and pretty much around the corner from that area, I definitely would support it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this is good news indeed. So with that, we are going to move on to our next exciting topic, and we never did get Tim Perry to not join us. Right? Okay.
Can we just ask if there's anyone from the, on behalf of the applicant for the first agenda item, because
Sure.
because if they're
Oh,
here,
yeah.
it might be worth just having them give their comments, and then, you know, if we want to revisit.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it just,
Sure.
so that they're not waiting until
Sure,
10
absolutely.
o'clock.
Okay, yeah. Is there somebody here from the 39 Stormytown Road subdivision that would like to be recognized to talk about the street naming? And if so, could you raise your virtual hand and then we'll unmute you? And I think we can let Mike and Jacqueline off the hook now, and you guys can talk. Of course, are welcome to continue to participate in our meeting, but you don't need to be participants.
Great. I'll
What? Wait, we're gonna let you back in, Mike. Hold on a second. Cut you off fast. Letting you back in. Unless you hung up.
Lost everybody? Okay. Oh, sorry. Jacqueline's back.
I'm back. I'm not sure what Mike was gonna say, but I just want to thank you guys again for your time tonight. I'm sure Mike was probably gonna do the same. I mean, we're looking forward. We think that this is a forward-thinking project and we're looking forward to advancing it with the partnership with all of you in the community.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time.
And I'm sure if Mike joins back in, he'll say something similar. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm sorry that we just didn't, we didn't catch them soon enough.
That's right. Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you so much. And, okay, so,
Well, it looks like there's no one here, so I
Okay.
guess if we want to wait till the end, then
well, so do you want, I mean, maybe we could just really quickly.
I can just go over
Okay,
it.
yeah, just really quickly, we're just gonna talk through, so we asked, the American Legion reached out to us and basically said, you know, we are supposed to provide the town with recommendations, and there's order in which, we consider names. And so here were the top 3 names that they would like us to consider for the road naming, and they are.
I have it.
And there's a short story that accompanies each one of them that you could just share.
Yeah, so basically, just to recap, this was a subdivision that was approved by the planning board. They're still in the process of getting their final subdivision approval, meaning that it has not been, the plat has not been filed with the county. And I believe it was last year, the town board adopted a resolution indicating that once the development is completed and the road has been improved to town standards, then the town intended to take it over. And so because of that, because it's not just going to be a private road, likely ultimately, the town does have the authority to determine what that name would be. The applicant was given the list of potential veteran names and had originally picked Baxter. But then we learned that because the town hasn't had to do this in quite a while, it wasn't until after that name was picked by the applicant that we learned that there were, the process was supposed to go through the Austining Centralized Committee of Organized War Veterans. And so they were kind enough to take the time to provide their input, and I delayed enough to get the document up. So the first, so the 3 names that the committee recommended are people who are known or their family was known to members of the committee in Austining. So the first is Bernard McSorley, who was killed in World War II in early 1994. He was actually in 1944. Is that right? No, what I said?
94.
Oh, sorry, 1944. He was in the Canadian Air Force, and he's buried in Kent, England. And the committee indicated that there are members of the committee who know the family member of that service member. And then the second 2 were killed in Vietnam. And again, members of the committee are familiar or grew up with these gentlemen. Chester Kasser Pendoli, who is buried in St. Augustine's Cemetery, and Daniel E. Cockshute. I apologize for pronouncing that wrong. Cockshute, and he is buried in Dale Cemetery. So those are the 3 names. So basically, it would be McSorley from World War II, or Pandoli, or Cockshute from Vietnam, who served in Vietnam. And then those are the 3 recommended by the committee. And then the name that the applicant had picked was Baxter, who died as a prisoner of war in the Civil War and is buried in Richmond, Virginia. So the applicant had indicated that it would be ideal to stick with Baxter because that's already the name on the plans, but ultimately that they're happy to go along with whatever the recommendation of the town board is.
And in speaking with our dear friend Michael G. O'Connor, he is very much in favor of us respecting the top 3 recommendations from the committee. And I think as a conversation that I had earlier with Councilman Minichio, he also liked that suggestion that we stick with the committee's recommendations. I would propose that we suggest McSorley Road or street, whichever anybody thinks, I don't know. Mostly because, or lane. There's rules on that. But one of the things that we learned is that he actually, in enlisted, thank you, enlisted in the Canadian Air Force, early in World War II, because the US was not yet, part of the war effort. And so he went out of his way to enlist in Canadian Air Force so that he could help defend the Allies. So if anybody,
Wasn't he one of the first ones killed?
might have been, I don't know. if
I
read
think
that,
Michael
but-
tells the story
Yeah.
during Memorial Day.
It was 1944, so probably not.
So does anybody have any strong feelings on any of these names?
I wouldn't describe my feelings as strong. To me, it kind of makes a little bit more sense to choose one of the men that are buried in Ossining, but I would definitely not oppose another suggestion. Just to me, it makes sense to choose one of the men that are buried here.
It's interesting because one of the reasons we have flags at certain of certain roads that were named after people who died, who were veterans, who died and who were not buried, right? Because they were either lost, and this is like a way to recognize them locally, because those who are already buried here, actually, we put up flags by their, their gravestones. And so, that's another reason why we might want to consider that somebody from Ossining who doesn't have recognition here in Ossining would have that name.
Yeah, like I said, I won't oppose it. I'm just saying.
I like your reason. We already have a McSorley's, but it's in the mix. But not a road. I do like the idea. I'm okay. Anyway, I do like the idea of recognizing someone that is not prominent and recognized already, so I would go and I know that we do go every year in honor of those buried in St. Augustine's and Dale. So it's always okay when you.
I think, I would hate to think this, I'm sure they're all worthy, so I will refer to Angela.
Just like my discussions with the supervisor, being that McSorley has been waiting, passed away a little earlier than the other ones. Still a tragedy for all three, but I think McSorley Court or McSorley, whatever one they come up with, probably would be my pick.
So we're good to go? You deferred? Okay. Fantastic. Okay, McSorley's it is.
So we can put this on for a quick resolution at the meeting.
Thank you.
Oh,
Supervisor, we do have a member of the public who's raised their hand. I'm not sure if
Okay.
they wants to entertain comment on this topic.
Okay, yes. Sorry, I forgot to write this. Jamie Black?
No, I have a question. Why wouldn't we, in the face of COVID and all of the challenges that we put forth to everybody on the front line, wouldn't it be an opportunity to memorialize everybody's efforts to move us through the pandemic and name this like Heroes Lane? And then that way we show respect for the people who lost their lives fighting for our freedom. But more importantly, we name it at a point in time to recognize and memorialize everybody who stepped up and stepped in and who lost their lives helping us fight the pandemic. And then as far as with McSorley, it seems like it makes sense to put together a GoFundMe to bring him back from England and put him in Dale Cemetery. So I kind of feel like calling it Heroes Lane just as part of a greater good.
That's a really nice idea, and I think that you bring up an excellent point that we should find a way to honor all of our heroes and our first responders. I'm not sure, since we have already established some protocols for road namings, that this is the perfect way to do that, but I do think that it opens up for further discussion, a way that we can recognize our frontline heroes, and we certainly have quite a few of them here in the town of Austin and village. Thank you for recognizing that. Is there anybody else who feels strongly that we should consider naming it Heroes Lane?
I think there's an established process for the roads that needs elected committee and centralized committee of organized war veterans, and we should honor their process. But I do like the idea of finding a Heroes.
Yeah, I like it. Great. Okay, thank you for the comment. Okay, and so I think from most of the other comments, is there anybody else from the public who wants to comment on the conversation about streaming? Moving right along. Next, Mallory Nostra has prepared for the board a memo detailing considerations for potential zoning related to cannabis retail dispensaries, since we know that this is on the horizon. New York State is moving more quickly along the lines of where cannabis retailers can be, and because the town did not opt out of retail establishments, but only of, of dispensaries, but only of, I want to call them now, just that, that's not the right term, consumption sites. We are looking and considering what exactly we would like to do as far as zoning is concerned. And we would also have an opportunity for public comment.
Great, so as you recall, a few months ago, we attended a prior town board meeting to talk a little bit about like the new requirements for what the acronym is MRTA, which is the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. So tonight is just the beginning discussion. Christy and I will then work together to start developing some sort of zoning regulations and amendments that would clearly go through a public process. But we do need a little bit of guidance from this board on a few items. So to start off with, right now, technically, marijuana, selling marijuana is a retail business. So technically, if you look in your zoning code, retail is allowed in both the neighborhood commercial districts as well as the general business district. They are both located along, the first one is along North State Road. And the second major area, the GB1, is along Portland River Road by Old Albany Post Road. Both of them allow for retail as of right. So if this board is going to allow or try to develop some regulations dealing with the sales of marijuana, you're going to want to take a look at those two districts primarily. If you want to consider opening up to other districts, like for example, if you decide to look at some of your other commercial districts like Executive Boulevard, we could add that as an additional use in those zoning districts. One of the other things that you're going to have to look at in terms of distances and buffer areas. So right now, the law itself has for retail establishments, you must be 500 feet from school grounds or 200 feet from houses of worship. But the school grounds themselves are specifically schools as defined in the New York State education law. So therefore, child care facilities are not considered school under the MRTA. The other thing is advertising and marketing must be 500 feet from school grounds, child daycare providers, public parks, or libraries. So another option that the board has in terms of regulation is that you could put some additional buffer areas from retail sales establishments of marijuana from daycare centers if you like. We did provide you a little bit of a map on those two, both the GB and the GB1 in terms of where daycares are located, and if you were to apply that 500-foot buffer. And what you'll notice, especially in the GB1, there aren't daycares located, so theoretically, you wouldn't have to worry about that in terms of excluding all properties. But in terms of the GB district along North State Road, as you will notice that there's a number of daycares, and if you do apply that 500-foot buffer, you really limit the number of properties that could have that type of retail establishment. Now, the reason why that's important is the law itself, you know, in order to have the benefit of the taxes that are potentially going to come in, you cannot, what I call, zone out the retail establishments, right? So you can't say, yes, I'm in, but I'm not going to really have it zoned in, I mean, allow for it in my community because I'm going to zone it out, but then I'll still be open to receiving the tax benefit. So that's something we'll have to seriously consider, especially if you were to apply the 500-foot buffer from the child care centers. You could also apply a less restrictive buffer of like 200 feet, and that would open up some potentially more properties. And the other thing that we're going to want to take a look at is also other regulations in terms of like hours of operation, as well as, you know, lighting, security. And again, it very well might be that we just, you know, look at how the commercial businesses are and just adopt the same regulations, but there might be some additional regulations or different additional requirements because of the nature of the business. And then the last is the approval process itself, whether the town will want this to be as right, or whether it will be a special permit process. Another thing the town also might want to consider is that, you know, in the number of communities that we're working in, it's not, we're not just it's not just targeting the new use as marijuana, but it's other smoke shops and just kind of those uses in general. So that's also another option for it.
Liquor stores.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so we can kind of, you know, if you want,
Do you want to pull up the map at all, just so we could look quickly at what is available with or without, any that we sort of identify?
Victoria, do you happen to have that? I forgot to make a copy of that.
I can, just give me a minute though. I'll have to pull it up. Hold on.
I have it open. Do you want me to email it to you, Victoria?
I can find it. Just, yeah, it'll just take me 2 minutes.
Doesn't MRTA have specific guidelines on zoning and setback already?
No, it does not.
Ooh, I thought they were gonna come up with.
No, well, that's the thing. So New York Planning Federation actually sent out, I don't know if you received the survey, but they were sending out a survey to a number of municipalities to kind of get.
We discussed it and then we responded to it.
Yeah, okay, right. So, we're waiting to hear to see if, like, because I think the state is looking to probably kind of provide some best practices.
I just emailed it to you.
A number of communities are just starting to look at, you know, what type of zoning that we would consider adopting in terms of this. So it is a very new topic at this point. So we don't have a lot of guidance on that. But I think when you look at other states that have already implemented, I think there's less of an issue of having to have it be overregulated versus just looking at what are the needs for that particular business and making sure things like, for example, if it's lighting, that we make sure that the lighting does not encroach to the neighboring properties, especially when you have residential districts.
Right. Always concerned about it.
So this, thank you, Victoria. The two maps here, the map on the left shows basically along North State Road, the properties within the, I'm gonna say the orange area would be, you would not be able to have retail sales of marijuana. And
that's only if you zoned out.
if you were to use, right, the 500-foot buffer from each one of the daycares, which are highlighted in yellow. The other area is the GB1 district, and clearly that does not have any daycare centers located near it. And it's very close to Route 9A, and I don't necessarily know if that is the most conducive area to have like just well, and also retail establishment. So most likely right now, based upon their zoning, I would assume that you know, North State Road would probably be the primary area that somebody would be looking to include a retail establishment.
Seriously, the North
I would
Yeah.
assume North State Road would be the primary area.
I have a comment just in the beginning. I'm not in support of the GB1 area, just from a law enforcement standpoint. I don't think there's enough visibility.
Yeah.
I think that it's kind of tucked away in that little corner of the town. And I just don't think it's a good idea just for lack of visibility and for a law enforcement standpoint. Whereas being on North State Road, you know, there's a lot more traffic from all the other businesses and it's more visible and accessible, you know, even so. I don't support GB1 at all.
What do you think about the daycare? I mean, closer or not closer, doesn't matter.
So there's actually, I'm very familiar with all the daycares that are on that road, and there's actually a difference among them, to be honest with you. Two of them that are on the southern part of the road, they're not just daycare centers, they're also after-school centers. So they service much older ages of children, whereas the other ones are more geared towards, you know, I'm gonna say infancy to
Okay,
age
so let's
5.
just call it out. So Club Fit, right now we have Club Fit.
Club Fit
which is
and
all ages, and we have UMAC, right?
No, oh, actually, yeah, so that's 3. So it's Club Fit, UMAC, and FKO for kids only. They all are more of an after-school center. And so they're servicing much older age children. And so I would want the 500 buffer around them. Whereas, and I don't even know if we can differentiate, I'm just talking out loud. Whereas the other ones, which is Young Wonders, Briarcliff Nursery, and I don't know what the new one is called on North State. And they, okay, and they mostly service, I'm just gonna say infancy to, you know, age 5. So I feel like to me, there's a distinction. I don't know if we're allowed to make a distinction in terms of the buffer zone.
Well, I mean, we can look into that. I think the difficulty there is the fluidity of like after-school programs, right? Because you could have, let's say, Learning Express decides they want to offer an after-school program at some point.
Was that, sorry?
It's like the Learning Express, right? So if any daycare that decide, you know, that right now is really focused on, you know, from infant to year 5, if they, for some reason, they want to expand their services, then do we not allow them to expand their services, or does that become problematic for the retail establishment? So, I mean, I would probably suggest that we just use daycares generally, and then we look to maybe find a compromise between like maybe 500, you know, instead of 500 and nothing, but maybe something like more like 200 feet.
The only reason I said is because the ones I mentioned, the ones that service after, like more after school, so they're servicing school age children.
Yeah.
And we already have established, you know, that like it has to be 500
Exactly.
in school, so it's just, it becomes almost like you're having the same children in 2 different buildings.
The only thing that I would say is that, and I could be wrong about this, and correct me if I am, for the most part, I'm gonna guess that kids who are going there for after-school programs are bused directly there and picked up by their parents. They're not walking there, they're not biking there, they're not getting there, they're dropped off there and picked up there. So they're not walking around the neighborhood.
Correct, that's
Right,
that's
which
true.
is different than
Correct.
school, when school lets out, depending on, you know. I mean, obviously lots of our kids are bused, but you know, it would seem to me that, you know, considering that compromise of like maybe 200 feet or something like that would make sense for these after school programs slash, you know, daycare establishments.
Yeah, no, you're correct. I mean, not that kids can't just walk out of Club Fit if they wanted to, but.
Right.
But you're correct.
It's
For
not
the
that
most
they
part,
can't,
they're
but for
being
the
bused
most
there.
part,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
seems like
Yeah.
you dropped there or you're picked up there.
Correct.
And I would say the same is true for UMac, you know, again, dropped and picked up.
Correct.
Right.
And we also have to keep in mind, and Valerie mentioned this earlier, that the local zoning restrictions can't be so onerous or restrictive that it's pretty much out zoned. So,
Right.
you know, looking at the map on the left, you know, you're looking at 5 commercial properties as potential sites. So that's in the entire unincorporated town. So if you, so that could be very constrained.
Right, no, I understand that, and like I just said before, I think it's better that they're located on North State Road, so in that end, we have to find a place where they can exist.
Right.
Exactly.
Right, so,
I don't think Crotonville supports that kind of business, so the road's old, the houses are close to it, and I really don't think Crotonville see that.
So it sounds like we will focus on, the general business district. We'll look to, we can play around with some of the buffers to create some sort of buffer, but maybe not one that's so restrictive as 500 foot.
Not GB1.
No, and not GB1, right? And then the other question I have is in terms of hours of operation. Is this something that we want to restrict in terms of how they can be open or?
I mean, I think there's times that make more sense for the business to be successful. And I would probably look at hours of operation for liquor stores to be as guidance for that.
Like 11 to 10 or something, or
it would have to be comparable. to
Yeah,
What
I
a
think
liquor store.
Yeah, and I think it's different on weekends, but yes, I'm like 11 or 12 on night, all the time on village liquor stores open to party in the town. But
And would you wanna also have, like, if we're looking at these types of uses, do we wanna include the liquor stores into this?
I would say yes, I think that'll make it more fair and equitable.
Yeah.
The same types of businesses and some small shops.
If we're looking at, I know that the MRTA talks about houses of worship. And I know we don't have any, but drug and alcohol facilities, I think should be included for some buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we don't have any, but there's a relatively new one in Arcadian, so. We could get.
Yeah, sure.
The state doesn't have any guidelines on security. My understanding is because the federal government doesn't approve marijuana yet, that it's a mainly cash business and you'd want a little bit more security with an all cash business than anything else. So I'd really want to look at that a little more.
Well, you're talking about lighting, just want to make sure it's aimed down.
No, dark sky lighting.
Yeah,
I want that everywhere. And I wouldn't hate talking about the Executive Boulevard area, even though it's not currently zoned for it. I don't know what its potential could be in the future, but I do think that's potential.
Is that part of the plate?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I would only support that after the development that we just talked about earlier.
I mean, I think it's the only problem is if we're making it more walkable, it's middle school.
If it's a mile away.
Yeah, how do you access? You're saying from the back.
I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is that, what you do now or in the coming months isn't the end all be all.
Right.
There's always the opportunity for further zoning amendments or zone changes down the line, and that may be necessary once we start to see these retail stores come online and we see how it's working in practice, how it's working in other municipalities, how the state and the courts are interpreting this law. So we're kind of a little bit in the dark right now about how this is going forward. So there may very well need to be further discussion about this. But the goal at this point is to have something on the books so that if and when the first application does come in, it's not just carte blanche. So if in 5-10 years, Executive Boulevard is, a completely different place. That certainly, and as we were discussing earlier, and Valerie mentioned, will require a zone change at some point anyway. That could certainly be incorporated at that point, if you don't want to, kind of speculate about it now.
What about, is there any need for discussion about one retail dispensary not being too close to another?
Yes. So we can also work that in as well in terms of, and then we call them, we're referring to them as like, you also have like what we call shadow retail, right? So you could essentially have like paraphernalia shop next to a marijuana shop. Now, I'm not saying that that's gonna happen, but we could put some regulations in that just, limits the amount of, number of individual shops that come in, so that there's just not, this cluster.
Yeah, that's important.
Not to diverge if this is too far out of the way, but I know there are potential restrictions too for advertising and signage and things like that, which for me are bigger concerns than location. So that's just something I think at some point we should have a conversation.
Yeah, so the advertising is, must be 500 feet from school grounds, child daycare providers, public parks and libraries. And one of the things that we've talked about internally and, is what's considered advertising. So if for some reason you have a sign, if you're the sign on your store front, if it has like marijuana leaf or specifically says marijuana, is that considered advertising versus just having like, a very generic name that doesn't really identify what it is you're selling? So those are some of the things that we're still looking at internally. And I don't know if you have, we didn't even start timing it tonight yet. But
I mean, when you get involved in signage, and, free speech, it gets a little messy, so
Right,
that's something
exactly.
we would have to look at.
yeah, so there's still a lot of, there's a lot of unknowns with this. But I do think we can take a look at that in a little bit more detail. But for the most part, the law itself does say 500 feet. Now, again, it's schools but they do include daycare providers in that.
Right, in the signage, right, and parks. Is there anybody from the public who would like to address the board on this zoning? Raise your virtual hand. No virtual hands raised. Let's move on.
So I think the next step is that Christy and I will work basically at remaining a draft local law, and then we can, again, it'll be draft, and we'll walk through it and discuss the pros and cons.
Great, thank you. So, you're good? Okay, I figure everybody. Okay, sorry. I'm just used to seeing everybody's face on Zoom and I don't know. Now you're just here, right? Talk, okay. So next up, we have, for some time, been looking for ways to improve our highway and parks facilities to better protect our trucks and equipment from the elements and have appropriate places to wash down trucks and equipment, as well as make it easier to repair, to access our snow melting materials and store other necessary materials and products away from the elements, as I mentioned. There are 3 parcels that have come to our attention as potential good locations. And as a first step, we asked Valerie and engineers with Nelson Voorhees to work up a feasibility study for consolidation and relocation of the parks and highway facilities in the town and assess the viability of these 3 parcels. So I'm going to once again turn it over to wonderful Valerie Monaster from Nelson Voorhees to walk us through the main points of the feasibility study and then open it up to the board for comments or questions.
So thank you. I wanted to introduce a colleague of mine, Parthi, and even though he has my name on Zoom. I was wondering who the second me was. So Parthi is a senior associate with Nelson Pope, and he also worked with me on this project. So let me just walk you through just really quickly on how we approached this project, and then we can talk about the individual sites. So first, what we did was we looked at 3 potential sites within the town of Ossining to consolidate both parks and the highway departments. We also spoke with both Pete and Mario about their needs and their concerns. We took a site visit to both the parks facilities as well as the highway facilities. And then we looked at each site in terms of first the environmental constraints to look at steep slopes, flatlands, also if there's any endangered species, that type of thing, just in, again, very generalized, but what's there in terms of what the New York State DEC has and what we have in terms of GIS. Then we actually took a look at the sites themselves and placement of what I'm calling the facility. And now, this is really the point of this project, is really to look at, if you had your full wish list, could you accommodate it on that site? That's not to say that that's what the building is going to look like, the exact location of the building, but it really is just meant to, you know, to identify if that particular site would in fact accommodate the needs for both departments. So the first site we looked at was Cedar Lane Park. And this site in particular, as you can see here, it has, you know, basically this would be one-story building as opposed to a two-story building. It does accommodate the building as well as the parking criteria that would be needed for both departments. The one drawback with this particular site is that it is in a park, and so it would require alienation of parkland. The second site is what we're calling the Hawks property site. This one is off of Hawks Avenue. The difficulty in this site would have to require probably two separate buildings based upon steep slopes as well as the wetlands on that site. And the difficulty with that is this one has the most environmental constraints than the other two sites. And then the third site we looked at, which was 105 Route 9A. And this is the property right next to the village DPW site. And this one actually has probably the least environmental constraints. It is also located clearly on Route 9A, away from any, well, for the most part, it's buffered from any residential districts. And this would accommodate basically one building where it would be able to have 2 stories based upon the slopes on the site. So with that, I mean, for you to just open up the conversation, and then Parky and I can answer any questions you have.
I'm gonna just see what I can do with my board.
And I'll say our conclusions too, and I forgot to mention, our conclusions, based upon what we saw on the site and the constraints that the 105 Route 9A would probably be the most advantageous property. That doesn't necessarily mean that the other properties wouldn't be considered. That one just seemed to have the more desirable location in terms of access to a highway. Also its location in comparison to the residential areas, as well as the environmental constraints.
I am gonna say one thing. So I just want to say before everybody speaks. So I just want to say that, you know, the reason that we started with these, why do we look at these particular properties? So we had heard that the properties were either going to be on the market or were on the market. They're either properties that we've known were of interest for some time. You know, we've been approached by some of the landowners nearby, and Cedar Lane, while it is our town park, there are neighboring properties that we could theoretically purchase in exchange. For example, if we were to have to do alienation parkland, which we would, and we could potentially exchange so that we could site the Highway and Parks Department there. I will tell you that, you know, we did, and again, Valerie mentioned that she and Parky, I think, both walked the sites. And when I say sites, it doesn't mean they just went to Ryder Road and 9A where our highway department is. They went and looked at Cedar Lane where we have stuff. They went and looked at the upper parking lot at Ryder. You know, we have a lot of stuff in a lot of places, and we may or may not consolidate everything under one roof, or we may still have some of those sites available to us for other equipment, so that, for example, theoretically, we still have one consolidated park and highway department under one roof where we could, you know, again, have the ability to share equipment, wash bays, etc. And even potentially charging equipment at some point as we think about shifting to more electric lawn equipment and other things of that nature, and even potentially electric vehicles at some point. And having that charging infrastructure at one location would be a benefit. It also would give us potential to share resources with the village, for example, in one site. And we have, again, the ability to potentially get some money from the state for sharing, consolidating some more services. So again, we could share wash bays, we could share salt shed, we could share brining locate, but you know, where you set up for brining, and other things of that nature that could help us all. So those are just a couple of the things. What I did want to say is that, you know, again, our both our highway department and our parks department have been asking for years for improved facilities. And you know, we have limitations and constraints on their current sites right now, which is why we've been looking for other locations. And I guess that's it. I mean, do we think that are any of these perfect? I don't know that any of these are the perfect location. I'm not sure that the location necessarily exists, but maybe it does, and we just haven't found it yet. So, you know, if anybody thinks that we should just abandon all these three, great, let's move on. And if anybody thinks that we should proceed and continue to do a little bit more digging, then we should do so. Okay, now.
No, my question was in regards to replacement parkland, and you answered that. So as long as there's ample replacement, then I think I'd be fine with more.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to purchase parkland wetlands and there's
We would need state legislation in order to be able to do that, but yeah, without some sort of swap or exchange, yeah, there's just no way the state would even entertain that.
And I also just want to note, Supervisor, I'm not sure if it was clear when, you know, when Valerie pulled up the map for Cedar Lane Park in terms of the area of Cedar Lane Park that we're looking at. It might be good to show that again, just so that it's clear that, you know, we're not really looking at any of the area that people are most familiar with in terms of the parts of Cedar Lane Park that they enjoy and go to all the time. It's a very large piece of property that the town owns. And so we were looking at some areas of the park property that is not really currently utilized as active parkland, let's just say. We just make sure that was clear.
And thank you for that. And for those of you who have explored or had the time to walk around or played around in any place in Cedar Lane, you'll know that we actually have our a salt shed there. That's our town highway department salt shed that we use for, and it's in our park. But sort of behind there, there's a little bit of an area that, you know, that has some equipment. And then behind that, there are some area that we have we've tried to do some compostable materials, like, you know, we put leaves and brush and stuff of that nature. So it's kind of back in that area where we put some of that material, and at one point we were actually screening our own topsoil too, but our screen broke. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna say, I have taken the time to visit the Cedar Lane and the Hawks Avenue areas. I haven't been able to visit the third one. And you know, I do think the Cedar Lane one is feasible. Yeah, I haven't, as I said, I haven't seen the third one. The Hawks Avenue, you have to realize there's already 4 residential developments on that road, in addition to private homes, as well as, so there's a traffic situation, and as well as there are people who take from 134, they take Alapartis down to Cedar Lane and then up Hawks Avenue as like a cut through to get to 9A. So there's an incredible amount of traffic on Hawks Avenue in that area, and I'm concerned about adding, you know, the parks and highway department truck traffic to that too. I just think it would be too much.
Right. So looking at all three, I mean, at the end of the day, my biggest things are access. Is there one road? Is there 2 roads, 3 roads to get to the property? And like I said, 9A, we all know there's only one way to get on or in there. Hawks Avenue seems the same way. If there's any problem with the Hawks Avenue Bridge, it'll be tight to get there. So at the end of the day, I would like to spend more time on the Cedar Lane property and see if we can get that to work.
Yes, yeah, I'm not feeling it. I'm not a fan of alienating parkland at all. Keep the Cedar Lane up for a second. I'm also a little concerned, how close it is to Indian Brook Reservoir. I'm not a huge fan of where the salt shed is now. I would love to see it move to, you know, similar to where the village salt shed is and even potentially, you know, sharing salt shed at some point. I think, and also installing new utilities across that great a distance, I think it's just a can of worms waiting to cost an awful lot of money. There's wetlands there. That is not my first pick. I don't think the Hawks Avenue site is workable at all. Just from the looking at the property, it looks very tight to me. The number one for me is the 199, where there's potential for sharing of, you know, tools or services, and already, you know, at least mainly an area that's already set aside from the public in a big way. There's a neighborhood behind it. And of course, we'll be working on those buffers, but to me, that area works the best for this use.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I have to concur with Councilman Feldman, because I think that that state makes the most sense for a number of reasons, and I do think that while access through the park is not prime, is probably emergency access. Yeah, what? That's not 100% sure. No, there's no emergency access. In any case, I think, no, for parks, I don't think you actually would have to do that. You don't have to alienate park ends. It's possible that there might be some happy medium, and ultimately that most of the, you know, much of what we need could be in one place, and some of what we need could be in another place. Of course, that would be more expensive, but we could certainly consider that parks stay in parks, and then you don't have to alienate parkland, and highway consolidates with a site that is DPW, because that is not parks, and it's just DPW right now for the village. That doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't explore how we can make it work, make everything workable, but and again, to the point that Councilman Feldman made about utilities, I think, you know, making sure that we have the water and sewer going out to whatever facility we would have out there in Cedar Lane would be most likely a can of worms. But I think that it's worth probably doing some further study, a little bit further study, maybe to figure out how, you know, how to make that work. So I don't know exactly what I heard from everybody, because the reason all over the map here.
Oh, also
Except I
having,
think we heard that we could get rid of Fox.
yes,
Yeah, let's cross out Fox, right? That's not an option. And then maybe we come up with some kind of
all right. I'm also not a huge fan of the trucks coming through, you know, the park, you know, with all the trucks and all the highway trucks and all.
you know, that happens now,
Park
right?
trucks.
Did you know
That happens at Ryder, not for the highway department.
No, it happens right now.
So the salt
The
shed.
highway department, oh, okay.
They're there all the time.
During the winter, it's not really the most active use part of it.
Okay, usage. Well. Further discussion. I think that right now it is being used more than we think. And you know, I think that I think there's a proposed different road though, right, for access. So if you could just.
Yeah, there is a possibility to explore this, an option to explore along the property over here and provide another roadway, so it doesn't go through the park. So that is an option.
Right.
Not a fan.
So that would go behind sort of that, there's that little offshoot right now as you go to,
Yeah.
you know, where the.
I'm aware of the wetlands next to it.
Right. I mean, that, is that, Carthy, is that a wetland right there that you're?
It's
kinda
below
touching
it.
base?
Yeah, these are all like the wetlands, so I can just pull up.
I grew up there. I'm very well aware of what that is.
Right.
So,
So that's an entire wetland.
so this is wetlands, but we can go right along this property line over here and access the roadway here. So this is not wetlands, this is just slope. This is 15% slope. So this is wetlands, but like just above the wetlands. So when I go back to here, so so pretty much this is all wetlands, like outside the property. So we just create another offshoot from here. So this is the stretch along this the pond that we have to access, and then we make a left. It's there actually. Like when we drove around this area, we saw some kind of like a path here, but
There it
it's
is.
not like a roadway, paved roadway. So
Yeah.
we make a paved roadway here for the trucks to go in and come out. So it's not accessing through the park.
And can you comment at all about the, what your thoughts are on utilities, bringing water and sewer back there, or theoretically, I think there's mention of having, of whatever septic or whatever you might consider on.
Yeah. So the water is up to here. So there is a hydrant right in this corner. And we believe there is some water main that probably extends a little further, but there is quite a bit of extension of a water main. And there is no sewer, so possibly we had to investigate an option for an on-site septic system in this, for this one. But when it comes to the property next to the DPW building, pretty much we have all utilities. So this one is a pretty straightforward one. Access wise, even like we can like investigate an option for a cross access. So we can like think of like an access from the adjoining the village DPW, and then trucks can like go in and out, and could be much more convenient for the maintenance. So
That's your.
Yeah, having a septic system with truck washing right near our reservoir is not favorable to me.
But doesn't the sewer end right at the beginning of 98 Bridge there, when you get off on Cedar Lane? There's sewer hookup.
Well,
there is sewer here. We can do a pump station because of the grade. So like when you look at the grade elevation, there's quite a bit of grade elevation change. So right where we're proposing the building, it's like 314 to 300 versus like when you come down here, it's like 270. Possibly like we can run a pipe and connect to it. If we got to investigate like the velocity, what size of the main, and what grades that it has to go through. So
I mean, it is possible that we could, I mean, you could theoretically look at, focusing on the 9A property, but then looking at, what types of emergency provisions we would need to have, like maybe at Cedar Lane, so while we're necessarily anything like large scale, but maybe, I don't know, like want to have like an emergency building or something that could potentially house, like, in case there is an issue at Route 9A, that's an option.
I think anything like that, you would want to restrict to parks, right? Because then to kind of, even on a smaller scale with Cedar Lanes, go both paths, essentially, I think that would probably be cost prohibitive.
Maybe the current park office could be an emergency headquarters for.
Well, I mean, even if it's emergency for highway, you're not going to do that, because you still have the same issue.
Right, but I meant just like, right, but it wouldn't be used in like
Oh,
an
no,
everyday occurrence. It could just be as like a redundancy or backup, not necessarily to do a full another building, but would it for some reason, like, Mario wanted to keep some of his equipment on Cedar Lane, similar to what he is a little bit now, and that we could have some equipment or something that's like a backup.
Right, I mean, I think for parks, that makes sense. Anybody else, ideas, thoughts? Percy, is there anything you wanted to add that we haven't been thinking about that you maybe thought about?
Yeah, I think that, if we just go for a ranking, I would go for, Gerardo first and then Cedar second. Hockeys is, it's kind of very difficult, like there's a lot of residential development, and putting in truck traffic in Hockeys is going to be an issue. So possibly like the least preferred option. So and so we can like dig in more on Cedar and Gerardo, and like do another presentation on like look at the traffic, what kind of impact. And again, like for the trucks to get out, even like if we have to build the infrastructure for them to get to highway versus on this one, it's already there on a highway, so it's easy access. So we can do a quick number of trucks traffic study, like just based on like not the counts and stuff, like, but we can use the ITE and come up with numbers and do a presentation of what kind of traffic are we looking at, number one, based on the size of the building and the classification of the building, and also about the utilities and constraints on the utility side of things, like dig deep on that. And even like on the site grading aspect, is it going to be a pump station, or is it going to be gravity flow, or how we want to do it, and what kind of impact that makes on individual sites. Again, truck wash is one big thing. So are we going to treat the truck wash, and are we going to have some kind of on-site treatment for that? Because it's a parkland on Cedar, if we're going to discharge, and how are we going to discharge? Is it going to go to the sewers? What kind of quantity? Those kind of things. We can like dig in more on those two properties if the town would like to do that before making a final decision.
And the Gerardo property obviously would have a better entrance onto the highway for the trucks on and off the highway. That would be graded and better.
Yeah, right now we're just showing a curb cut that's kind of existing, and we are proposing a 26 feet wide access for a fire truck or any truck movement. But again, it's a lane movement. There's a turning lane here, and we want to just be careful, like as you can see that it starts to, the turning lane starts like before the curb cut. And sure, I'm sure DOT will have a say on it. They want to just adjust those things. Again, the striping in the highway and stuff. So, something that we can dig in more, have a discussion with the DOT, and we also can say that we can provide a cross-access easement, and cross-access like can be built so that it's not like huge impact. Otherwise, they may ask for a signal warrant study, and if the signal warrant study warrants a signal, then it's cost wise, it's very expensive to propose for a signal and stuff like that. So that's there are pros and cons on both of them, and the other aspect to it is on Gerardo property, the building is 2 levels. So basically, the first level, one of the departments is going to access from the main level, and then we have a grade elevation difference of 20 feet. So we're taking advantage of the grade, but go to the next on the backside and access it from the rear. Very similar to the concept that the village DPW has on their building, but in this case, then it's going to be concrete steel construction versus wood construction. Or so again, like construction cost on, so if it's Cedar, it's a straight up 1-story building, linear building, and all the trucks get access from the front. So we could, the building wise, we can classify type 5 or a wood construction option, but or a cheaper option versus this one we are going with a multi-story truck access, and so it's the design has to be 200 pounds or so per foot, and so the building cost, what's it going to look like? So we can dig a little more and provide some more insight on, again, like that's the for the budgeting and making a decision, it's required. So something that we can like dig in more.
I think we should do that. To do a little bit more further study
So-
with some of those items.
Yeah, so like, why don't we focus on, we'll focus on like the utilities, the cost of construction.
Mhm.
And I think that might, yeah, really
Give us a lot.
right, give you an idea. of,
Just to
like-
be open-minded, I mean, they drive with trucks and trailers, and to make a turn like that, you know, you need a slow down lane, and then when you pull out, you need a speed up lane to get in there, so.
But I don't imagine that would be the angle of the driveway.
Well, I hope,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I'm just trying to be more open-minded if it came in a little earlier, so, but these are all things that.
Right,
Good
right.
answer.
I mean, you do have that curve there, so we can take a look at that entrance, see if there's another option, again, for just just for the purposes of this exercise, yes, we do have immediate access to Route 9A now, it's getting the appropriate items.
Karthi, can I just ask one question? You had mentioned having conversations with DOT. Are you anticipating doing that at this stage, or is that going to be down the line?
No, if we want to dig in deeper, I would certainly want to have a conversation with DOT. Again, like the options of a deceleration lane or, a signal, what's their, what they're looking at on their end is something that if we have it upfront, it's easy for us to make a decision on. And if DOT is going to say, there is for certain reason that they don't want to have any curb cut for any truck access, and they're going to just completely deny it, then if we know that answer upfront, it's much easier for decision making versus, we go at a later stage to them. So certainly I would want to have a conversation with DOT at this stage.
And I think that totally makes sense. I agree with you. The one thing I would be careful about is when you were speaking earlier, you had indicated mentioning to DOT the potential or the option of having, that easement with a drive-through onto the village property. I would just be careful about making those types of representations until we've had a discussion with the village about that, because I also don't want to create a situation where we commit to something that may not be able to come to fruition.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's like on the DOT manual, it's principally required on every DOT fronting property. They're going to ask, it's a requirement. They want to have a cross-access easement for the subject site. And if the neighbor agrees, then they can open it up, or you don't need to build it. It's just you're proposing a cross-access easement, and it's a mandated thing for every site. They do ask, make sure that there is an option for cross-access, but it's not mandatory to build it until the neighbor agrees, or if they would prefer to go forward with an application. So it's no matter what, DOT is gonna request it as per their manual request. So that'll come up during the DOT review.
Is it possible for them to come like one way, come in on, on the bottom end of the property and go out on the other for safety?
It is possible. So again, those are the things that we want to discuss with DOT. What are the preferred ways that we can provide access to the site?
All right, well, thank you so much. Is there anything? Thank you so much for your thoughtful study, and we'll continue to dig a little deeper. And again, if anybody has another great idea for available parcel. Okay, so with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn to executive session for advice of council, personnel, and contracts. So moved. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? So much easier to do not on Zoom. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this town hall. Next week, we will be back here at 16 Kroger for 11:07. And that is Tuesday, September 27th. We will see you soon. Have a great night.